elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. Just get a wide range of parental involvement at all the different levels in different kinds of schools, and then do a kind of a comparison and contrast to see how people, administrators, teachers, et cetera, at these schools thought about parental involvement, and then kind of compare and contrast them. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Crystal, who did some awesome research.
Try to. So basically what we wanted to emphasize on is how important parental involvement is with any kind of youth, K through 12. And we found out that not only does it create fewer behavioral problems, it creates a better academic performance, and those that have parental involvement are more likely to graduate high school. Go to the next one. And then I just have some statistics for you guys. The Southwest Educational Development Laboratory reviewed 58 studies conducted between 2003 and 2008, which concluded that interaction between parents and teachers helps adjust students more easily to schools, classroom expectations, which will ultimately translate into higher achievement. So that kind of plays into the crucial role of what parents actually can contribute. Go to the next. Oh no, that's the one. And then according to Joyce Epstein, who is the county leader expert on parental involvement, she actually does a lot of research when it comes to parent involvement, how parent involvement interacts with children, and the results that are produced from that. And she actually broke down each category into 6 different groups, which is parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and community collaboration. I was going to go through a little bit of what those are, but I'm pretty sure you guys can understand that. This chart actually shows information of how parents that are educated are more involved with their children and more involved in the child's development as far as education is concerned. And if you can see, beginning with less than high school, you have less than a 50% active involvement from parents. And then going all the way up to the graduate professional level, it almost doubles. So just by being educated yourself, you can help influence and develop your child and their education. Okay, this is basically talking about distinction between races. It was really focusing on how different races actually educate their students in different ways. And it really started to communicate about how, though a lot of the white population are more involved in their school, like volunteering, actually going to programs, stuff like that, the actual races that had less involvement were African American and Hispanic. But it does show that, according to the study, 82% of parents, of white parents, actually check their students' homework at home, and that rate is more than 10% higher when it comes to African American and Mexican American students. And a part of my research actually showed that the more you are involved at home and the more that you develop the educational process of students at home, the more it's going to affect their actual process. So even though it's kind of unevenly divided, it shows that Mexican Americans and African Americans are keeping up with the race pretty well, even though they don't volunteer as much. All right, and this is parental involvement. It basically shows that it resulted from 2007 results, but basically it's showing that the trend of parental involvement is going up. So, you know, across, I think it was 2003 to 2008, it was really starting to show an improvement. In 1996, 1998, there was a lot of studies done that kind of incorporated the parental involvement and how essential it was. And since those results have come out, not only have the schools been proactive about it, but obviously the parents have as well. All right, the person that I spoke with was Elsie Dodge. She is a teacher at Truth Christian Academy in Littleton, and I basically spoke with her about how their school is influencing Littleton and the surrounding areas.
And the person that I spoke with, his name was Ray Rosenbach. He's a counselor, and he works for Reedy Scheduled High School, and he's been there for over 30 years, and he's pretty much done everything at the school, so he was a good resource.
Alrighty, back to Miss Elsie Dodge. She's a volunteer consultant. She's a curriculum specialist, a special needs resource, English language learner specialist. She also has a BS in elementary education, a master's in educational handicap and emotional behavior disorder, and 33 years of classroom experience.
And again, with Ray, He said he's the counselor at the boys division of Regis Jesuit High School. He's the director of the counseling department for both schools. He was a social studies teacher, a theology teacher, and he's worked there for over 30 years. Do you want to talk about the people you interviewed?
I interviewed 2 first-year teachers. One of them actually graduated from Metro's teaching program a couple years ago, so that was pretty exciting. One came from a high-income school in Jeffco. The other one came from a low-income school in Mount Bello. So complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but when I talked to them, when it got past funding and everything, they both just had to say it's getting the parents to come to the parent-teacher conferences, return phone calls, and get involved, because they can only do so much in the classroom and the rest of it happens at home. With the teacher from the low-income school, she said that's something that's different from her lesson plans than the lesson plan of somebody that's at like regularly funded school, since hers is majority free and reduced lunch, is that they don't expect their students to do any classroom work outside of the classroom, just because that's the trends they're seeing. So she has to divide her day up differently than other teachers, where they're reviewing more in class because they know those students are going to go home and have nobody at home, or nobody at home to, go over spelling words with them, stuff like that.
Alrighty, and then back to Elsie Dodge. One of the questions that I asked her was, what is Truth Christian doing to encourage parent involvement? I could read through the list, but it shows a variety of different things that they actually do to encourage that parent involvement. When it comes to like fall musicals and spring plays, what they actually do is they get the parents involved to actually create the setting. So like they do all the backstage work. They actually, and one parent actually did the narration of one of the plays, and that simple narration of getting him involved just in that one project revolutionized his whole view of parental involvement. I mean, he saw an effect not only in himself, but in his child, so now he's a regular volunteer at the school.
And then I asked the same question to Ray at Regis Jesuit, and it was interesting because at Regis it was almost the exact opposite end of the spectrum. It was, by the time the students are at Regis Jesuit, they've had tons of parental involvement throughout pretty much their whole educational system. And what Regis is doing, it's a college preparatory school, so they're trying to build more independence and almost trying to like wean the students off the parents a little bit more. So they don't have any specific programs on how to get parents involved. It's more about just the regular things, parent-teacher conferences, twice a year. But he really talked about building community, and they want Regis Jesuit to really feel like a family when you're there. And so it's really about building community. And he just said that the parents kind of just depends. There's some parents that are really actively involved, and he said a lot of times it just depends on the students. At that point, the students are already modeling behaviors that they've already learned. So if the students are really involved, those are the parents that he sees. He sees the students that are really good students. They're active in athletics. So their parents come to the games. They're active in other fundraising activities at the school. So he sees those parents. But just because somebody's parents aren't there doesn't mean that they're not involved. They're probably just involved in other ways.
Alrighty, and another question that I actually asked Ms. Dodge was, do you believe that parent involvement is instrumental to a student's success? And she wanted me to emphasize the O, and then she's like, oh yes, it's completely and totally essential to any student's development. She was talking about how she can actually see that those students that have parental involvement are not only more engaged, they're more outgoing, and they have more improved test scores. So it definitely does show, and especially in her immediate environment, how important parental involvement is.
And then, again, just kind of repeating some of the stuff, it's at Regis, again, it wasn't, he didn't go out the charts and say, oh yeah, absolutely, it's at that point it's kind of like, yeah, it's important. But what's more important is, developing the student, preparing them to be an independent thinker in college, and just really kind of, again, trying to almost get the parents out of the picture to a certain extent. So he said, yes, it is important, but it's kind of like at this point they already know it's important, so now it's more about kind of building the individual up, as opposed to having this support system that's always kind of been there. Want to add anything?
My teachers, I thought it was really interesting. They said the same thing, that it was important because learning doesn't end at the classroom. It's supposed to continue at home. And especially when you have a student that's struggling or just, having a hard time with something, they need to be a partner with the parent. It should be the student, the school, the home, all on the same level.
Yeah, that was one thing that Ray talked about too, is he thought that education was all about a collaborative partnership between the teachers, the parents, and the student. Everybody had their own responsibility and a piece of that responsibility, and it was getting all of them to kind of equally engage.
And I think that's interesting, going back to the Peter Senge speech that we all listened to. He was talking about how there needs to be a cohesiveness between the parents, the school, and the facilitators. Like, everybody needs to be on the same level for students to be successful. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This is really a thing on my part. I wanted to urge you guys. I know that being a part of this program is volunteering, getting out into the community. When I was speaking with Elsie Dodge, she was talking about how severely underfunded the school is because they're a private school, so they don't actually qualify for a lot of government grants. They don't get money from the government. They barely scrape by based on tuition because a lot of their students are on scholarship. So what she wanted me to tell you guys is that if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity or any kind of opportunity to get involved in your local community, come see me, let me know, because she's really looking for people to do anything, to read with students, to do simple math problems, to run the office so that the teacher that's running the office can actually teach a class. So if you guys are interested in any kind of that, come see me and I'll let you know about it. All right, and then another question that I asked Elsie is, if you could give any advice to your student parents, what would it be? And that's basically verbatim. She says, I know you have a lot on your plate. I know that you are running as fast as you can and barely keeping up, but your child's education is the future. We must do anything to facilitate their education, not only to help your child, but to help develop the entire world and determine our futures.
And I asked the same question, and basically the advice that he said, again, is kind of opposite end of the spectrum. He said that, at this point in their education at the high school level, as they're preparing to go on to college, he wants parents to encourage their children to take more chances. He said oftentimes what he sees at Regis is parents just expect their kids to do what's expected of them. And so where real learning happens is when they take a chance and do something and fail within the safe confines. He said, "Here, this is the place to do it because you really can't mess up. If you try something, go out of your little box and do something, take a chance, take a risk. If you do it here in this safe environment, there's kind of no harm, no foul. But if you do it, later on in life, there's bigger consequences to pay." So he said this is where he kind of challenges parents to, kind of push your children to do more than just what's expected of them, so that they can learn and grow during that time. I think that's it.